Hello everyone, I'm here at the International Printing Museum at city of Carson in the house. Anyway, so I'm extremely excited to see this. I just found it randomly yesterday, recommended by AI, freaking AI. And absolutely, as you say in the hood, absolutely stoked to see this. It's gonna be so gnarly, dude. Anyways, it's gonna open in 5 minutes and let's rock and roll. Or as you say in the south in Arkansas, lock and load. Gnarly, yo. Gutenberg in the house. Alright fam, it's gonna open up soon. So let's check it out. It's quiet. Freaking, oh look at that, there's one here already. What is this? Press. These are like, the press is safe for press. Like it came from like press, like grapes and stuff, right? I don't even know. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Wow. Amazing. It's totally gonna be worth it. Hello. Hi. Do you mind? Okay. Oh, I don't even know what to do. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. I like an entrance. Ticket, please.
Okay, yes. Admission is going to be $10 for students and seniors, $12 for adults.
Okay.
We'd be happy to get you started. I can take your admissions cash or card.
In the online, it said there's a guided tour.
Yes, every admission includes a guided tour.
Okay.
Guided tour is an hour long, so you go through the history of the Chinese into Gutenberg into the Industrial Revolution.
I'm a total nerd. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, all right. Well, you're in the right company then.
Okay.
All right, I can take cash or card.
Cash.
It'll be $12.
Cash. You can. You know what? I don't need change.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right.
Some brownie points for the internet.
Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Are you here for the workshop or the museum?
Yeah, the workshop.
All right. Was it the Heidelberg workshop or the calligraphy workshop?
Heidelberg.
All right. So what I'm gonna have you do? You're gonna head through the museum all the way to the back, or you can go around. Either way, it's probably cooler through the museum though.
Yeah.
So you just take a look through the cooler end. Cooler.
Wow.
You take this knee, walk through the museum, go all the way to the back through the parking lot. There's another building in the back called the Bogarts Institute. All right, sir.
No, I don't need the change.
I'm gonna put this in our
Okay.
in the box here. If you hang tight, I'm gonna go turn on all our lights and
Sure.
light it in.
What is Wagoose? Ways goose? I only saw that in a dictionary. First time I'm seeing this in real life. Someone actually uses this word. This is why I love Southern California. Freaking G, total G.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Welcome in.
Hi.
Here to see the museum?
Yes.
All right, so every admission does include a tour. Admissions is $10 for students and seniors and $12 for adults. We do cash or card.
Sorry.
All right. $12. You can insert or tap. Seat. you are.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and I'd be happy to get you two started. We have another tour guide. Not quite sure where he is, but I'll get you all started, and when he comes, he'll take it up from here. So come on over.
How long does the guide take?
It's an hour long. You're welcome to jump in or out whenever you'd like. You're also welcome to just look around on your own time
Okay.
if that's what fits you best today.
Sure.
All right, so welcome to the International Printing Museum. My name is Carson. Is this your first time visiting?
Yes.
All right, well, welcome new faces. It's great to have you here. What you see behind us is our main gallery. Over up to this side of the museum, we have our 1950 shop where we still have presses and machines that our volunteers and staff still use to this day. In the back, we have another building called the Book Arts Institute where we do workshops for teens and adults. Today, we're doing a Heidelberg workshop. We also have a calligraphy workshop where we do letterpress, bookbinding, screen printing, all kinds of good stuff. Off-site in Corona, we have 10,000 square feet of storage of presses, books, type, all kinds of good stuff. Now this is all thanks to one gentleman. His name is Ernie Linder. You can see his uncle's name right up on the sign over here, E.G. Linder & Co. His family worked with linotype machines, trading, selling, repairing, all that good stuff. Now, Ernie realized these printing presses weren't being used anymore. New technology started to come out. These old printing presses started to get pushed to the side. So he started to bring them into his own collection. He collected for a very long time and opened up his first gallery when he had enough of them in the Museum of Science and Industry, also today known as the California Science Center. Now, eventually he collected so many, he collected for about 50 years. He opened up the first printing museum in 1988. In 1997, Caltrans built the highway. They bumped us to Carson. We still live here today. Now, Ernie was this big German fellow, hand over mustache, rosy cheeks. Clearly, he loved printing. But he was also a world traveler. He lived to 79 years young, passed away in 2001, and at the age of 70, he traveled to none other than the North Pole. He didn't just go, he hiked. A year later, he went to Russia, flew a fighter jet, upside down, waved to his wife. When his wife missed it the first time, he did it again. And of course, if you go to the North Pole, where do you want to go next?
South Pole.
South Pole, and he did just that. We have a picture of Mr. Ernie here at the South Pole on a warm summer day of 40 below zero.
Very adventurous guy.
Very adventurous. Nothing to do with printing is an interesting factoid about our founder's life. Now, before we get started, I gotta tell you about some of the great things we have coming up at the museum. On Saturday, April 18th, we have our Crazy Crafts Day, so we have 15 different activities for the little kids and us bigger kids. Letterpress printing, bookbinding, screen printing, paper making. It's truly a day to have a good time.
How much does that cost?
$15. And usually people spend 3 to 4 hours here doing all the different activities. So it's a pretty good takeaway. If you have a son, a cousin, a little kid in your life, we offer 2 merit badges in one day, as well as the day for the girls. And our biggest event of the year is our Printers Fair, which happens every October. This year is 17th and 18th. So we print the show guides in-house every single year with all the vendor information. This whole back parking lot gets filled with 110 different artistic vendors. This whole place comes alive. It's in a very different energy than today, but it's chaotic in the most beautiful way possible. So these are available for grabs. If you want to grab one at the bookshelf over there, you're welcome to take one on your way out. And another thing, our book arts workshops, we're constantly updating them, so there's always new ones coming out. If you're interested in getting your hands dirty, learning something from someone who's dedicated a good portion of their life to it, this is a great opportunity. All right, now I'll get you all started. You're welcome to come take a seat on these black stools over here. Let's see, and then I'm gonna be right back real quick.
I might have missed it, but how many press he collected over the?
So many.
Like-
Collected for 50 years, and we're still actively collecting to this day.
Do you have like a round number, like 500?
About maybe, we have multiples of presses
Wow.
too. So we have a few Colombian presses, not just one.
Wow.
We have a few Vandercooks. We have a dozen windmills. Like there's a lot of them. And our executive director and curator, Mark Robor, I got a call maybe a month ago, this woman in Inglewood. She said, my great grandfather was a printer and I have all these old things and I don't know what to do with them. can you come pick them up this Saturday? So we came and we picked them up and we bring them back. We either keep them here or we send them off on their way. We have a sale every year, a Ways Goose and Surplus sale, where we send them off to be loved elsewhere. So
Wow.
it's a constant in and out. We do movie rentals as well, so that's a big part of our revenue. There's a bunch of different moving pieces at the museum. But here we're at the tour.
Okay.
So this is our colonial style printing shop. Right here we have the third oldest printing press in America. That's 1806. It's called the Ramage Press. Now we will not be printing on this one today. There's a fine line between function and preservation. However, we will get to do some printing. We are the printing museum after all. Now this is something that Ben Franklin would use way back in his day. When Ben was a kid, his son would become an apprentice at 14. Ben, being very ambitious, started at 12 because of his love for books. His father said, well, you love books and we can't afford to send you to school, so we're just going to make you an apprentice to your older brother who is a printer. Like brothers do, they butted some heads. He ended up moving from Boston to New York later, ironically, to the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, where we're known for today, where he became a master printer by the age of 22. By the age of 42, he opened up dozens of printing shops, essentially franchising printing. Making up so much money, he became one of America's first millionaires. All right, Peter, you want to take over from here?
I will in just a moment.
All right. So, Ben was an amazing printer. He did not invent printing. Printing was invented by the same people that brought us pasta. Any guesses? No? None? Want to take a gander? They also invented silk, paper, screen printing, whalebone. The Chinese, yes.
Wow.
1,000 years ago, the 11th century. All right, just got started with this one. This is Peter. He's going to be taking
Hi,
over
Peter.
for
All
me.
right, yes. Yes, as Kirsten's told you, printing began over about 1,300 years ago by the same nation of people who, of course, gave us spaghetti and pasta noodles, which, of course, is...
Chinese.
Thank you. You weren't fooled by Marco Polo. That's right. It was the Chinese that came up with this, and they came up with block printing about 1,300 years ago. You can examine that. That's not 1,300 years old. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be allowed to handle it.
So this is how old?
That's
Okay.
125, 150 years old. But it first started over 1,000 years ago in China.
Wow.
And you can see it was, by the way, yes, feel free to take all the photos and videos you'd like. Please do so. They carved it in by hand, in this case, both sides, backwards in Chinese. They'd rub ink over it. Then they would rub a piece of paper over it, pull it off, and they made a copy.
Wow.
And something like this could make between 2,000 and 5,000 copies, which means you are spreading out ideas and information to as many as 5,000 people. This is the beginning of mass communication. Or in today's language, think of this as the world's first website.
Wow.
And those 5,000 copies are your 5,000 hits or 5,000 links. Now in Europe, well, they hadn't caught up with the Chinese yet. They were still back in the Dark and Middle Ages, so they were doing things the old-fashioned way by using a quill pen. Obviously a feather from a duck or a goose, and you'll notice on the bottom there, creates what we call a capillary, just like in our blood system. And the person who wrote with this was a scribe. Back then he was probably a monk in the Catholic Church, sitting in the monastery, dipping his quill in the ink, writing a few letters, dipping in it again, writing some more, dipping in it again, writing some more, and at this rate, it took the scribe somewhere between 3 and 5 years to write or copy one book. 5 years to copy the entire Bible. I'm sure you can guess there weren't too many books in circulation, and their price was prohibitively very expensive. I'm told somewhere between 3 and 5 years' wages, which in our money today, we're talking somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 just for one book. Well, prices like that, I'm sure you can imagine not too many people could afford books. Actually, it was limited to about 3 groups of people. The wealthy, which would have been the merchant class of their day, which would have been the merchant class, the royalty, and of course the church officials. But they were just 5% of the population. Your other 95%, ignorant, illiterate peasants. Well, first of all, they couldn't read. Didn't matter. They couldn't afford the books anyway. They didn't have the money. And they couldn't read the books. And when you have no books and you don't read, you have no information or knowledge. Without information or knowledge, you have no influence or power. All of this will begin to change somewhere between 550 and 600 years ago. In Mainz, Germany, lived a German jewel maker and goldsmith by the name of Johann Gutenberg. He invented a machine that would resemble this, and he referred to it as my faster writing machine. And leave it to a German inventor to come up with a nice exact technical name like that. Actually, Gutenberg wanted to come up with something called artificial or mechanical writing, and his great contribution is right here between my two fingers. Movable metal type. Now, I wasn't the first to come up with movable type. The Japanese and the Koreans were doing it at least 100 or 200 years earlier, except they used clay or wooden blocks. Well, clay will break, wood will wear down. Yes.
I hate to interrupt,
Go ahead.
but I'm dying to ask. So it's complete misnomer. The Gutenberg was the first KMO, the first printing machine we taught in history books. Like,
Well, the printing press as we know it, yes, we credit Gutenberg,
Okay.
but his real innovation was movable metal type. I mean, he wasn't the first to come up with the idea of printing. It existed, but it wasn't very practical. The advantage, you see, what I was about to say is, like I said, the Japanese and the Koreans were doing block printing already, but it was either clay or wooden blocks. Well, the problem with clay, it will break. Wood will wear down. Metal, this will outlast all of us. The question is, how did he come up with this? Now, that's another story. What he did was, he took a piece of metal like this, a file, and then he'd spend all day filing it down. Well, by the end of the day, he will have filed a letter. Well, at this rate, it will take him at least a month or more, not just to make an entire set of letters, but also numbers and punctuation marks. And when he's finished with this, he'll want to reproduce it. How? What he will do is, he'll place the metal into a fire, which heats it up, put it into water to cool it down. That process, what that process does, it hardens or strengthens the metal, just like steel, they do with steel. And then you take a piece of softer metal, perhaps brass or copper, put your hard metal on top of the soft metal, bang away at it, and this is what you get. We call this the mat or the matrix. And what we are going to do is pour hot liquid metal on it. Now, you just can't pour it on like that. That's wasteful and dangerous. Instead, we want to mold it into a nice small shape like this. In order to do that, Gutenberg came up with this: two interlocking pieces of metal with a wooden insulator called the mold. Bring them together like that. Put a little matrix in there. Snap the spring to hold it into place. On the other side, you have a little rectangular hole that has the same name as the holes in our teeth, the cavity. And like the cavity, it gets filled with metal, not soft metal like a dentist uses, but hot liquid metal. The question is, which kind of hot liquid metal? Is it one that will melt at a very high temperature or a very low temperature? He realizes, well, anyone want to take a guess? Actually, yes, a low temperature of only 550 degrees Fahrenheit, which of course we'd all burn up at that temperature. That's a stove on high. But remember, he's working with a wood-fueled fire. That burns up to 1100 degrees Fahrenheit. You do it half that temperature, it would save you half the time, half the cost, half the material. Because he's a jewel maker and goldsmith, he understands the properties of metals and elements. After experimenting, he comes up with an alloy made up of three metals: lead, tin, and antimony. Lead melts at 450, 500 degrees. Tin will harden at that temperature, and antimony causes it to spread out evenly inside the mold right here. As it turns out, I have a sample of some of this printer's metal right here, which is basically similar proportions of what Gutenberg used. They're different types, but they're about up to 80% lead, about 80% lead, 10 or 15, between 10 and 15% antimony, and the remainder is tin.
Seems similar to electronic solder.
Yes, it's exactly right. And what I'm going to do will remind you of solder. A good comparison. And And you can see it pours just like mercury or silver.
That's what.
And when I pour some here onto the table, you'll see it quickly hardens.
Wow. This is, sir, what?
I said, this is printer's metal.
Okay.
I said, which is mostly lead, but also contains
wow.
tin and antimony. Yeah, and here's a piece right here. Look at that. And you'll see that it is melting just as quickly as it hardened.
Kind of recyclable.
Yes, exactly. You're going to see that later when we get up to the linotype, right towards the end of the tour. And there it is. You can see, there it is. It's already hardening.
Wow.
What's this looped coil here?
That's the spring to hold it in. See, we're holding the spring into place. And there it is. There's a piece of typecast, all ready to be used for printing.
Wow.
And when I go like this, it will remind you of a rubber stamp. And little stem right here, that's the excess. Just take a hammer and knock it off. And there it is, a piece of typecast, all ready to be used for printing. Now over here is our case, which is where we keep it. So I said, do you want to get it?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. This is our case, which is where we keep our fonts, the sizes and styles of the letters. The way it's arranged, small letters are in the center and left side of the case. The capital letters are on the right side. Capital letters are listed alphabetically, except J and U are at the end, since they were not part of the original Roman alphabet. Small letters are arranged differently. The ones we use most frequently, we keep right here in the center. T-H-E-A-R-I-S. E has the biggest box, since it is the most frequently used letter. What about those letters we don't use so often, like X's, Z's, and Q's? Put them right here on the side. This style of casing has been used by the printing industry since the 1850s and is known as the California job case, because guess which state it originated or came from? Right here in California during the gold rush. They condensed everything into a smaller case. Before that, for nearly 400 years, that means starting with Gutenberg and through Ben Franklin's time, they kept the capital letters up here, the small letters down here, and eventually they became known as the upper and lower case letters. Yes, that's a printer's term.
Wow.
Now here's another term that may have come out of printing, I'm not sure, but it's pretty hard to tell the difference between B and D and P and Q. Thus, I'm told another saying may have come out of printing. Mind your P's and Q's. I've also been told pints and quarts, but you know, we're a printing museum, so we'll stick to our version. All right, now right over here, I have a composing stick where we line up the letters and get ready to print them. Do either of you have 5 letters in your first name?
Yes.
Yes, which is?
Z-E-E-S-H-A.
Let's do it again. V?
Z.
Again, to find a V.
Oh, you mean 5 letters only, or like more, like at least?
I might be able to fit 6, but certainly 5.
No. I have 7 letters in my name.
No,
I have 6. Dennis.
I'll use my name.
There's one person, very famous person with 5-letter name. Okay, let's not get into that.
You mean, well, I'm not going to be trumped. I know I'm not supposed to bring up politics, but yeah. Anyway, there we are. Hello to Peter. Obviously, the letters are backwards and upside down.
Yeah.
But how do I know I put them in correctly? There's a notch right there. That's known as the nick. That tells me if I put the letters in correctly. because with some capital letters, like a capital O, H, I, N, S, X, or N, it's very easy to put it in the wrong way, and the whole thing would, of course, be totally off-centered. Now, during the weekdays, we get school groups in here, and usually you have somebody up here acting as my apprentice. And I usually have his or her name here, and I tell them how normally the printer puts ink on there and presses it onto a piece of paper. But for their enjoyment, what I'm going to do is put ink on there and press it right onto the apprentice's forehead. While they're all laughing, what I'm actually doing is pressing the letters into the palm of my hand to give everybody a nice, clean example and impression of printing.
Wow. Hence the term first impression.
Yeah.
So what are in the cases below? Are those specialized characters with different fonts?
Those are more type pieces. We've got them all over the place. We've got them here. We've got them over there. I mean,
Well, it seems like there's like a whole cabinet built.
yeah, there were. Some of them are
Wholesale.
just discarded pieces. There's nothing that's specifically that I'm aware of that specifically in a particular.
Would printers typically carry like many typeface sizes?
Oh yes. Oh, absolutely. The same
Yeah,
thing
like
with
a couple racks of.
right. Same thing with the linotype. There's also different fonts.
Fonts. Oh, so fonts were invented back then.
Oh yeah.
Or like the sans serif
Make
and
fonts today on our
Yeah,
computers,
yeah.
and we're typing the different. That goes way back to printing,
wow.
and so we're talking about going back in some cases hundreds of years. All right. Oh, here's an interesting item I have. This is a German catechism book that was printed 260 years ago.
Wow.
I can't imagine the individual typepieces must have been tiny.
Yes. Here, now feel the quality of that paper. Examine that.
Okay.
Yes, and as you mentioned, look at the different sizes of those types.
Mhm.
And imagine you're the one having to set type for this. Letter by letter, word by word, line by line, paragraph by paragraph, and page by page. The printer would set it up right here on the galley inside this metal frame called the chase. Chase is the metal frame. The blocks around it are called furniture. And these little things with holes right here are known as coins, not C-O-I-N-S, Q-U-O-I-N-S, and then you have a key to tighten it or loosen it. And as you can see, you're setting every letter, every blank spot, every punctuation
It
mark.
almost like the back of a computer, like
Yes.
the circuit board.
It's amazing.
And then you
So
set,
they would have to fill in the spaces
yes,
so that everything's there's no gap. So you
right.
Squeeze it on.
Exactly. Then, of course, you place it right down here onto the galley. You put ink on it, a piece of paper underneath, roll it underneath the press, go right ahead and print it. But remember, you're doing one page at a time, and this is, say, back in, 275 plus years ago in 1750. That's going to be very slow. So in order to speed things up, what the printer would do is maybe print 2, 4, or 8 pages on a single sheet, hang it up to dry like you see above me. When that was dried, you would then print it on the other side, and when that dried, you would then fold it, bind it, cut it, and there it is. Got yourself a pamphlet all ready to be read and sold. All right, I'm going to go over here to the Gutenberg press. As I said, yeah, this is what we call our Gutenberg press. You can obviously guess it's not the real one. It's one of the few replicas we have here in our museum. This replica is a replica of the one that is in the Gutenberg Museum in Mainz, Germany. When that museum opened in the 1920s, they could not find or locate the original Gutenberg press. It was lost to history. So they built one based on descriptions of it or what they believed it looked like. And what made it work was an item, well, like this. This looks like to you and me a gigantic screw. It is actually from a 500-year-old wine press. And the same thing that makes an oil or wine press work is exactly the same thing that makes a printing press work. Instead of pressing grapes into wine or olives into oil, we press paper into books, like you can see right here. Now, one of the things that goes on with printing is inking. Now, ink rollers, as we know them, will not come about until the early 19th century. So for over 350 years, this is what printers use. We call these brayers or ink balls. You put the ink on there, spread it around, and then pound it onto the letters like this. And remember, the printer is doing it for each and every page many times per hour all day long. So eventually, what's going to happen to the leather on here? Well, you can see right there. It cracks, it gets ripped, it gets torn, it needs to be replaced. Whose job was it to replace it? That poor teenage boy working for the printer known as the
Apprentice.
apprentice, right. Or my joke used to be about 15 years ago, the person who got fired every week by Donald Trump. The apprentice, right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. When I always used to tell that joke, the adults got it, some of the kids got the joke. And then when I would have one of the pupils up there as one of my apprentices, and when I was finished, instead of saying thank you, I'd say, okay, kids, if I was Donald Trump, what would I now tell the apprentice? You're fired.
That is hilarious. That is
Kids,
hilarious.
at least one of the children always knew that one. They got that joke. All right. But getting back to this, and this is before he was even a presidential candidate. Getting back to this, as I said, Ben Franklin said that changing the leather on the brayers or ink balls was the worst job in the print shop. Now, it wasn't taking the leather off or putting it on, because if you know anything about new leather, what does new leather feel like? Think of a new baseball glove.
Yeah,
It's
rough.
always hard and stiff. And the printers were using the cheapest form of leather available,
Wow.
which happened to be rawhide. And of course, this we use for dog chew toys today, but this is actually from a printer's ball. Now today we want to soften it up. Of course, we would go down to the local hardware store and buy whatever chemicals or supplies that we needed. Well, we're talking, 250 or 275 years ago. You just didn't run down a local hardware store. So instead you had to take the leather and dip it into a nice natural organic softener. What was that? I'll give you a hint. It comes out of a cow, but it's not milk.
Piss.
Yes, exactly.
Cow urine.
Urine is very acidic.
Oh.
It's naturally very acidic. Cow urine especially so. So our friend, the apprentice, would go down to the pasture. He'd try to find a cow, place a bucket underneath the cow, wait for the cow to fill it up, put the leather in there, leave it in overnight, and then the following day, without using gloves, rinse it out by hand, which I know you love hearing right after breakfast. Now, I talked about ink. Oh, by the way, I can tell you this. I can tell this to the adults. They actually had a name for this process of changing the leather, because a lot of printers would keep a supply of cow urine for this purpose, and they called this entire process knocking up the balls. Now, of course, ink had been around for a long time. Scribes had ink, but that was water-based ink. It didn't go well on metal letters. So good, because it's too thin. It's very watery. So you want something thicker. Well, by the 1400s, painters are using oil-based paint. Why can't we have oil-based ink? So Gutenberg does some experimenting. And what he does is he'll mix up two basic ingredients. One is boiled linseed oil, and the other is chimney soot. It comes up with printer's ink. Here's a modern example of some. You see, it looks just like tar or paste. Put a little here onto the table. Now I'm going to cheat, use a little 19th and 20th century technology on 15th century technology. It's much more efficient this way.
It's quite a physical job.
Yeah, exactly. And I press it right down onto the letters, and you can actually see them come right up on here.
I wonder when they say paste, like modern computer, if they deliberately chose that term paste. I don't know. Could be.
Cut and paste?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. You're right. It doesn't sound very computer-like. It sounds like literally taking a scissors and glue and putting things together, as they probably did at one time. Now, I'm going to take this piece of paper. I will lift this up. This is known as the frisket. I will place the paper onto the tape-in. Put it in between the pins. Close the frisket onto the tape-in. Close them both onto the galley. Turn this handle called a rounce. Pull the lever nicknamed the Devil's Tail, as the apprentice was nicknamed the Printer's Devil. And the cast-off letters were thrown into the hell box.
Essentially, you're Xeroxing it.
Yes. An early copying machine. And there we are.
Wow.
A page of the Gutenberg Bible.
Wonderful.
Every page was exactly 42 lines long, printed on blank paper like this. And maybe one of you can tell me which language this was printed in.
Latin.
Correct. Gothic or Old German style letters in Latin. And of course, a blank space right there. I'm sure you can guess what they did with that.
A large typeface? Or
Yes,
a little
exactly.
graphic?
Oh, the rebus, right?
It would take the finished Bibles to an illuminator who would illuminate or illustrate every page of the Bible. Now, usually it was the first page of each book of the Bible that got the fancy treatment. The other pages in between, they would just touch it up wherever it was needed.
That blank,
that blank,
by hand.
yes, the blank spaces for the letter P from the Parables of Solomon. Of the 48 known surviving Gutenberg Bibles, no two look alike, because they're all done by different illuminators who just happened to reach the peak of their profession around 1450, just as the printing press came onto the scene. As a result, their trade would go into a decline. If you've been to the Getty Museum in Los Angeles, big collection of illuminated manuscripts. If you want to see a real Gutenberg Bible, Huntington Library in San Marino has one.
Okay.
All right. Now, I mentioned to you earlier, it took a scribe 5 years to copy just one Bible. In 5 years, Gutenberg was able to print 180 Bibles. Was this a faster writing machine? Now, you bet it was. That's why Gutenberg has been called the man of the millennium, and this is the most important invention of the last 1,000 years. This machine would totally change and revolutionize the way we spread information and ideas. To give you an idea of the impact of this machine, Gutenberg was born in the late 1390s. So the first 50 years of his life, the first half of the 15th century, in that period of time, 20,000 books were written by hand in Europe. When this comes onto the scene in the 1450s, in the remainder of that century, we go from 20,000 books written in one half to up to 12 million books printed in Europe in the second half. I think we can guess what happened to the rate of literacy. It went way up. You now could spread trade, commerce, business, most importantly, information and ideas. The first book to be published was the Bible. It is still the most widely published book in the world today. But there was a problem with that Bible because it was printed in Latin. And they had a problem back then with Latin. Same problem we have with it today. It was already a dead language. Now, yeah, I mean, the educated people had, so if you want to read the Bible, you had two choices. You could learn Latin, which the educated classes did, or you translate it. And that's what happened in the next century. There was a dissident German monk, I'm sure you've all heard of him, Martin Luther. He had lots of disputes and arguments with the Catholic Church. And he had the audacity, he had the very nerve to go ahead and translate that Bible into German, into the vernacular, so the average person where he lived could understand it. Well, thanks to the printing press, you can now print thousands and millions of copies of the Bible. And when something is mass-produced, it becomes affordable. People can buy their own Bibles, read them on their own, and interpret them on their own. And they begin to say, well, if I don't need the parish priest to explain it, I certainly don't need the Pope in Rome. So this machine did not cause but helped spread the Protestant Reformation. Now, of course, I tell this to school children absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. But what I tell them is, there's the social media of there it is. What you got? There's the answer right there in your hand. The social media of 500 years ago. That was TikTok. That was YouTube. That was Facebook. That was the internet.
So Gutenberg invented this, and we have been shit posting ever since.
That's right. Exactly. This is what you do on your computers at home. That's exactly what the printing press did. Okay, we'll go around and look at some other things in the museum.
But these were very rare back, like probably one, or like the press were like, how about like just one in Europe, or like
Like when?
like after he invented the press.
Well, I mean, it's like everything. Once the secret is out, other people are going to build their own. And as I said, that's why you have 12 million books printed in less than a half century. Obviously, he wasn't the only one printing. Other people discovered it. The ironic thing is, Gutenberg died a poor man. He owed a lot of money. All this inventing that I'm showing you takes many years and takes a lot of financing. Well, he owed money to someone named Johann Fust. Well, Fust wanted to be paid up. Gutenberg didn't have the money. He took Gutenberg to court. Gutenberg lost everything, including his assistant Peter Schaefer, who ended up working for Fust and eventually married the boss's daughter and died a wealthy man. Gutenberg died poor and forgotten, even though he's the one responsible for doing all this.
Well, he was for Guten.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But
Okay.
yeah, I know. But the whole point is that once something gets out, everybody's doing it. It's the same thing with technology.
Yeah.
Even so-called secret projects, once they're no longer secret, everybody else is copying it. Even if it's something as elaborate as a nuclear weapon to an automobile. Remember there was a lawsuit around 1900 about the word automobile. Was that a copyrighted word?
Wow.
Well, you had several different, there were several different inventors. Even Henry Ford said what I did was nothing new. He just copied what other people did and made it better. Thomas Edison did the same thing. He took existing technology and took it the next step. And in some cases, was just a little more successful and a little more ambitious than other people. All right, now we're going to move up into the early 19th century. By the 1790s, the Great Revolution has broken out in Britain, spreads to North America and Western Europe without firing a shot. The Industrial Revolution. People move from farms to cities. Instead of working the land, they're now working in factories. We now begin to have metal presses like this 1810 Spano, which was one of the first metal-made presses made in Great Britain, replacing those wooden presses. That wooden press right there is an 1806 Ramage press. It is the oldest press in our collection. It was a gift to our museum from Ted and Andrew McNally of Rand McNally, the map and book. Yes, you recognize the name, the map and book publishers. Yeah, I hate to sound sarcastic, but yes, you remember maps and atlases before we used Google Maps? Yeah, remember those? Yeah. Even if you go to the AAA and get that little triptych to show you your route. Yeah.
At least we still have globes.
Yeah. Well, anyway, our director, Mark Barbour, went to Chicago to meet the McNally brothers to meet with the McNally brothers, and he got two things out of the meeting. He got lunch, and we got the printing press. The Smithsonian found out about it a week or so later, but too late, he beat him to it. Now let's move on down here. I want to show you a very interesting press. This is the Columbian. It is the first American-made metal press. This restored model was about 1824. The first one was invented around 1813 by a man named George Clymer. And you can see he was a proud, patriotic American. There's the American bald eagle. There's Columbia, gem of the ocean. You can watch how the eagle rises. Very good press, but there was a problem with it. If you brought it to a city on the East Coast like Baltimore or Philadelphia, it stayed there. Now you might say, what's the problem? Well, by 1815, the United States is a pioneering nation, moving out to those far western frontiers to places like what will soon be the new states of Indiana, Michigan, and Illinois. And you want to bring a printing press with you, which one are you going to bring? Are you going to bring this metal press, or are you going to bring that wooden press?
The wooden one.
The wooden one, yeah. It's easier to move because we're talking about horse and cart and riverboat. So as a result, Mr. Clymer didn't sell too many of these in the United States. But then in 1812, excuse me, in 1817, he goes to Britain to sell this. And this is just 2 to 3 years after the War of 1812 with the United States, when those are not going to be very popular symbols in a war that you just, with a country you just had a war with. But forget your national loyalties for just a moment. Which of these two metal presses is more attractive to you? Is it the British Stanhope or is it the American Columbia?
The Stanhope.
The Stanhope.
You like the Stanhope?
Yeah, this is too loud. This screams American. It's like if you saw this in the airport, you know that's American.
Okay. Well, actually, I've had a few people who like the Stanhope because they see it as more utilitarian. But if you're going on looks alone, this wins out. They knocked the Stanhope right off the market. I know. Well, yeah, maybe too. Well, if you like something more simple, yes. But if you like something more attractive, this one is going to catch your attention. All right.
Well, what was?
Yes. Go ahead.
No, so go ahead. What is this? Is it just for decoration? This I don't know the.
That's the again it's part of it's decorated, but it is an essential part of the.
I just noticed that the eagle moves.
It is there to help.
Because they weren't doing images yet, right?
Yeah, that's another thing. I'll show you. Actually, I'm glad you asked that question because I'll show you that in another minute or so. But usually, if they had images, there were very few or none because you had to carve each and every one of them by hand.
Maybe like line art or cross-hatching.
Some of them were actually. I'll show you in a moment. Some of them were actually quite good. I mean, it was more of a. Even though it was a craft, it was really more of a piece of art.
You can't get like grayscale or anything like that unless you just.
Because in the earlier illumination manuscript, you saw these beautiful angels with multicolor, like those are hand painted.
Yes, those are hand painted.
And sometimes gold too, right?
Exactly, and a lot of times they actually use actual elements for the actual colors.
Okay.
Oh, here's something interesting. Declaration. I'm sure you recognize the Declaration of Independence.
Yes.
It was printed first. Before that famous handwritten copy was made, it was actually printed. You can see a copy right there. It says "Print Your Own Declaration of Independence," and here's an actual reproduction of it.
Wow.
On July 2nd of 1776, the Continental Congress voted for independence. John Adams wrote to his wife Abigail, this would be the day that would be celebrated in the future with, bells and bonfires and games from one end of the continent to the other. It was on July 4th they approved the Declaration. That's why we celebrate July 4th. But of course, they had to argue about it for several days because Jefferson wrote some controversial things in there, like denouncing the slave trade, which Georgia and South Carolina didn't care for since they were dependent on slave labor. And Tom, you're getting a little too tough on the British people. Our argument is with the British government. It's the King and Parliament. Our families are from Britain. We don't have an argument with them. It's the government we have an argument with. Well, finally, on July 4th, they approved the text of the Declaration. The final draft was sent to a man named John Dunlap. He was the official printer for the Continental Congress. He proceeded to print approximately at least 200 broadsides or copies of the Declaration. You will notice only two names appear on it, John Hancock, the president, and Charles Thompson, the secretary. Well, it was distributed among the now 13 independent United States of America, read in public squares, reprinted in local newspapers. So within a few weeks, everybody knew we're an independent nation. But the Continental Congress realized they did not have their own official copy. So they authorized Timothy Matlack, he was a clerk to Charles Thompson, to write an official engrossed copy of the Declaration, which he did in late July and early August. Then in early August, a month after independence had been declared, the members of the Continental Congress finally signed it. And of course, John Hancock made his signature so large, so he said so King George could read it. No, actually it was John Bull, the symbol of Great Britain, could read it without his spectacles. So the words were Jefferson's, but the handwriting was not.
And it was just a regular paper, parchment,
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's move on down here. here's what I was talking about. Why you see very few illustrations in old books. Because you had to hand carve each and every one of them, and they'd only be used once. But you can see, look at the detail.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, so it's plain. It's plain, or is it?
Well, here you can
Okay.
you can actually feel the
Okay, the relief.
relief. Yeah, here not so much, but yeah, this one you can feel the relief. Now, around this time in Britain, some unknown person is working in his kitchen, and he mixes up two basic ingredients: glue and molasses. Mix them together, they create a rubbery-like substance. And if you put it in a cylinder like this, you can then mold it and shape it, and then put it onto a roller like this, and roll that ink. A lot easier than having to use those ink balls all the time. But there was a problem. Look what happened when they put it away at night.
Gunk, I don't know.
Mice and rats ate away at it because of the molasses. No, we would not eat. You and I, neither of us would eat glue and molasses. But our little furry rodent friends, they didn't care. They nibbled away at it. And let's face it, we always had someone in our kindergarten class who always had to taste the paste, right? Alrighty. Now, let's move on over here. This particular press is nicknamed the Grasshopper. Come on in. Are you here for a tour or for one of the workshops?
For the workshop.
I believe it. Oh, are they doing it here or in the?
I think the library.
Yeah, try the library's right there, straight ahead.
Okay,
It says
and then
Heritage
afterwards,
Theater.
I need this information on printmaking classes. Do I come to the front desk?
Yeah. The shop, yeah. That's workshops. Yes, I believe you're right straight ahead. They give you more information there. This is, as I said, this particular press was nicknamed the Grasshopper because when this moved back and forth, it reminded people of the legs of a grasshopper. First invented around 1870 by a man named Enoch Prouty. He was a Baptist preacher who lived in a typical Baptist town called Boscobel, Wisconsin. His motivation for inventing it, he wanted to warn everyone about the dangers and evils of liquor and alcohol. The problem is you work on these machines for a while, you won't be a teetotaler anymore. You won't be against the use of alcohol. You probably keep your supply right down there. But this was very popular in rural America for two reasons. First of all, it only weighed 4,000 pounds. I know that's the weight of a car, but remember, a similar press like this in New York City would weigh between 10,000 and 20,000 pounds. So which one are we going to bring over to the back roads, those small towns and villages? This one. It was also manually operated. It means it did not require outside sources of power like water, coal, steam, or later electricity. You just needed two people to operate it. The apprentice to feed the paper and the printer to turn the wheel.
I'm surprised this one doesn't have the big like pressure plate on top anymore.
Good point.
Is it just the weight of the roller?
Yeah. And then just come up, turn it, grab the paper, print it, drop it off, and then you see these rayers right here, those rollers, they come back here, they get inked up, grab another piece of paper and continue printing. Something like this could print about 800 pages per hour. Now, the Gutenberg press, our Ramage colonial press, 350 years, 80 pages per hour. So this was
genius.
Yeah. Well, this was a big improvement. And remember, this is just for the small towns, and villages. Oh, and here we have right here the first page of the first edition of the Los Angeles Daily Times from December of 1881, and may have been printed on a machine like this because back then, according to the 1880 census, there were only 11,000 people living in the city of Los Angeles. It's not even the county, just the city itself. A few years later, someone named Harrison Gray Otis bought this newspaper and became known as the Los Angeles Times, one of the largest circulating newspapers in the United States. And of course, I have a printed
Imagine
copy.
setting all that type.
I'm sorry?
Can't imagine setting all that
Oh,
type.
yeah. And right here, here's a copy of the LA Times. In case I have to show the children so they won't forget what a printed newspaper looks like. Let's face it, they won't have to wait to be our ages to see this disappear. It'll probably do it. I'd say newspapers will disappear, but it will all probably go online before we know it. All right. Oh, another interesting story behind this press. Yes, very interesting story. Are either of you subscribers to Home Box Office, HBO? Have you heard of a series on an HBO series called The Gilded Age with Christine Baranski? It's about these upper class families in New York in the late 19th century. One of the characters is an Afro-American newspaper publisher, and this was the co-star twice in that series. In 2020 and 2022, it was actually rented out and taken to Tarrytown, New York, just north of New York City, to be used in the series. Our director, Mark Barbour, actually went out as the technical consultant. The reason I mention this is even before the museum opened in 1988, it was already known in the entertainment industry. If you were looking for a vintage press for your movie or television show, Ernie Lindner had it in his collection. And a lot of this has been rented out to TV and movie companies over the year. I told you this was in the HBO series, The Gilded Age. That Ramage press was used in an episode of The Gilmore Girls. And when you later on, when you go into what we call our 50s shop, there's a couple of mid-20th century presses that were letter presses that were used in J. Edgar with Leo DiCaprio and Philip Seymour Hoffman's last film, The Master. Not this platinum press, but there's one against the wall over there where those panels are. One of them was used in a TV series from the 1970s and 80s. You may have heard of it, called The Waltons. And then there's one way in the back, you can't see, it's around the corner. It was used in the Disney movie Newsies. So if you see any movie or television show, no matter how recent or how old, if you see a printing press there, and if you thought you saw it here, yes, you probably did.
Lends a lot of authenticity to it.
Look, I mean, like with the I told you, I'm sorry, what was that?
So putting these in the movie or show would lend it a lot of authenticity.
Exactly. And
Okay, so-
they're willing to pay the money. I mean, as I said, HBO twice, or the producers of that series twice, shipped this to New York. Now, I like to think of myself as a loyal employee, but I'm thinking, gee, there must be someone on the East Coast who has a press like that. Well, don't tell. Let them borrow. Let them rent it from here. So. Alrighty, let's move
So
on.
is that why, is that a, African, oh, that's not African
Yes,
American.
that's a
Frederick Douglass, okay.
Famous abolitionist, former slave, and leading abolitionist, and probably the
'Cause-
leading African American of the 19th century.
Back in the days in slavery, putting a person of color on a major newspaper, wouldn't that be frowned upon or
Probably, yeah. And he actually printed his own. Actually, Frederick Douglass printed his own paper, the North Star. In the after he ran away from slavery, actually purchased his freedom. In the 1850s, he was already becoming well known for that. I mean, he was the one who talked to Lincoln, saying, you ought to start recruiting, like during the Civil War. I think you ought to start recruiting, freed black men.
Lincoln debated Douglas, right?
Right.
Oh wow, I didn't even. Okay, never mind. I don't know my history.
Not that Douglas.
Oh.
That was Stephen Douglas.
Oh,
He was
okay.
a
I'm
white
just
man.
okay. Never mind.
Douglas was much more conservative than Lincoln. Lincoln wasn't as radical or as progressive as Douglas, but he eventually moved that way. So,
Okay.
all right. Now, right over here is something known as the. This is known as the platen or job press. This would be used for smaller jobs in the print shop. After all, if you're putting out a weekly newspaper, you need to supplement or add to your income during the rest of the week. So what are you going to do? You're going to print handbills, advertisements, posters, business cards, stationery on a machine like this. These manual platen presses were manufactured during the mid-19th from the mid-19th to the early 20th century. You place your ink up here, you place your chase in there, and you place a piece of paper right here. And and then of course you use pedal power. Here, I'll show you. Remember I showed you the chase before? I think this is a much better example of one. You can see right here again the chase, the furniture, the coins, and then you have a key to tighten it or loosen it. And you can see how you were setting every letter, every blank spot, every punctuation mark. This is just for one little page. As you did that, we placed in there, placed the paper here. Then like an old-fashioned sewing machine, you use pedal power. And you see the prayers come up, they get inked up, they come down, they ink up the letters, and then you press the paper, put the paper in there, press it upon, and there it is. Now, moving on over here is our Western newspaper office. This would be like a typical newspaper office in the American West Day back in the 1870s. I even have a newspaper from that period of time, the Daily Territorial Enterprise. Like most newspapers of its day, it was only 4 pages long. Now, in a large city like New York or London, they might print up to 8 pages per day. And look at the size of that type. Wow. Now imagine you are the one setting type for this, letter by letter, word by word, line by line, paragraph by paragraph, column by column, and page by page. It took one typesetter literally half the working day to set type for just half a column. You needed between 50 and 60 typesetters spending half the working day setting type for this paper. Then, well, why half a day? Well, then you print it. Oh, and what are you going to do the remainder of the day? Take out each and every one of these matrices or letters, clean it off, put it back, and do the same thing for the next day.
Only to find out you misspell lose.
Oh, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to the old form of spell check in just a moment. This paper is interesting. It was printed in Virginia City, Nevada, February of 1872. At the time or just before then, there was a reporter on the staff of this newspaper. It came from Hannibal, Missouri. His name was Samuel Clemens. He later went to California, wrote about the jumping frogs of Cavaleras County, and then he gained fame and fortune by writing 2 very famous novels, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and The Adventures of Huckleberry, well anyway, Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. Of course, we all know him as Mark Twain, who worked for this newspaper. He actually started out as a printer's apprentice back in Hannibal, Missouri. That's a hat he's wearing, not his hair. All right, now, you're talking about, well, what if they make a mistake? Well, right in front of us is something called the proof press. There was no such thing as spell check back then. You want to proofread something before you printed it. Well, just like any other old press, you'd set your letters right down here on the galley. You would then take a little brayer, and ink it up. You'd then place a piece of paper right down here. Oh, there's the brayer right here. Put the brayer, ink it up, and then you would just roll it over. And there it is. It didn't have to be perfect as long as it was legible.
So proofread that.
Yeah. Now, very interesting story behind this galley or tray right here. You will notice it says Miles Nervine, because back in Elkhart, Indiana, lived a Dr. Franklin Miles. He produced this patented medicine known as Miles Restorative Nervine. Claim it would cure your ills and calm your nerves. Now, I don't know what it would cure. It will certainly calm you down, because I think you can guess what half of its contents were.
Alcohol.
Yeah. is alcohol. Well, the folks at Miles had a great idea how to sell and market their products. They had one of the largest printing operations in the country, not just printing labels for their bottles or for their boxes or their product, but for public relations, they distributed a lot of calendars and almanacs. And and they had a very good working relation with the local foundry or ironworks in Elkhart, Indiana, that could produce these proof presses for them. So what would happen is when they would send their salespeople out to the towns and villages in the American West and Midwest, the first place their salespeople would go to was the local newspaper office, talk with the editor or publisher, offer them this proof press for free in exchange for free advertising for Miles Restorative Nervine. As a result, they were able to sell thousands upon thousands of bottles of Nervine right up into the 20th century. Here we are from 97 years ago, 1929. There's the before picture. There is the after picture. You see how happy she is when she's had her Nervine. Well, eventually the Federal Food and Drug Administration caught up with Miles. They stopped producing Nervine, but they came up with a substitute product, Alka-Seltzer for upset stomachs, produced by Miles Laboratory of Elkhart, Indiana. Now, around 1870, we get a new invention, which you folks, you two gentlemen, look like you're old enough to remember. Excuse me again for being sarcastic.
Well, thank you.
You look old enough to remember?
Typewriter.
Typewriter, right. Invented around 1870. If you're good at it, it's faster than writing by hand, certainly much neater. Why not apply the same technology to typecasting letters? So in the late 19th century, there is a competition on to invent such a machine. You know, we've always been told necessity is the mother of invention. Well, competition is the father. This is one of the entries, the Unitype. You have a keyboard here, not QWERTY as we know, but you type out whichever letter, punctuation mark, number you need. A little matrices comes through here and lines up right here in the composing stick. Another one that was very good was this one right here, the typograph, invented by John Rogers about 1890. It combines the technology of the typewriter and the piano, because hanging on each of these wires is a matrix just like that. You can see it right in there, little indentation in there where the letter would be, where the hot liquid metal is, and you type whichever letter, punctuation mark, number you need, fold down into place in front of the pot of hot liquid metal, and out here comes slugs or lines of type.
And these are actual Rogers typograph slugs. Things have a tendency to turn up seemingly out of nowhere around here. Unfortunately, unless they're either locked up, bolted down, or painted day-glow pink, they also have a tendency to disappear for no apparent reason. And those showed up a few years ago, and I looked at them. I could tell they were obviously line-cast slugs, but I'd never seen slug bodies quite like that before. So I asked our director, Mark Barbour, if he had any idea what they came out of. He barely glanced at them and said, "Oh, Rogers typograph." And so, yeah, then once you'd cast your line, you'd unlock it, lift the whole top of the machine, much higher than this, but we have it wired down because some years ago, two guys had to spend an entire day cleaning up an enormous mess that had accumulated over many years of tour guides lifting it up all the way, and we decided we didn't want to have to go through that again. At any rate, though, the thing about this approach is that, well, machines like the Unitype and like another machine that our old friend Mark Twain invested heavily in and lost his shirt on, had to spend the rest of his life on the lecture circuit just to pay his bills. They just tried to mechanize the hand setting process, and they all ran into the same problem. How do you make something like this sort itself automatically, quickly, and reliably. And so a few people realized that it made more sense to just cast new type every time and throw the old type into a hell box, haul it off to the remelt furnace. A few of those took the next logical step. They realized that if you're casting new type every time, you may as well cast the entire line as a single slug of type. And this was one of the entries that took that approach. Didn't become very popular in the US, but Peter, I understand it gained some popularity in Europe.
Yes, it did. As you'll see, there was a better American machine that was better that replaced this, but this was popular in Germany in the early and mid 20th century, and were actually manufactured in West Germany as late as 1972. But that was for developing countries, because it was a better machine, as James is describing, which we're going to see in just a moment, the linotype.
Yes. Ottmar Mergenthaler was a German immigrant watchmaker. And he was one of the people trying to come up with a typesetting machine. And I think from what Peter has already told you, you can figure out that basically everybody and his dog was trying to do that. He realized that casting new type every time made a lot more sense. He realized that casting the entire line as a single slug of metal made more sense. But he realized something that John Rogers didn't think of. He realized he didn't have to have captive matrices like on the Rogers typograph, because he could make the matrices in whatever shape they had to be so that they would sort themselves reliably. The way he did that was by putting binary coded notches at the top of every matrix. You can see cavities for two different variations on the same letter, and the side the operator sees, which is something else that Rogers didn't think of. And on top, well, a notch is either hooked or it isn't, ones and zeros. Ottmar Mergenthaler was using binary codes back in the day when a digital computer was a guy counting on his fingers. And he wasn't the only one. Think player pianos and jacquard looms. But Peter, what happened to that room full of guys spending half the working day setting type for a 4-page newspaper?
Oh, yeah. Well, you can see a photograph of all the typesetters over there. Now, when this new technology came on, most people thought, well, do you think they gained or lost work?
Gained.
Exactly. Most people thought, oh, those poor typesetters are out of a job. No, they're retrained to operate these machines. And it will be the typesetters union that's going to operate these machines. Oh, that's our cat.
Hello, Pika.
That's our,
It's not stuck in the machine. Is it?
yeah. It will be the typesetters union that will be operating these machines for the next 80 to 90 years. And so you can imagine, imagine a room this size or larger full of machines like this operating all the time. Instead of printing a 4-page newspaper, they're now printing a 100-page daily newspaper, 500 on the weekend, several editions per day. And it's not just the major cities like New York, Chicago, or Los Angeles. Right here in Torrance, Long Beach, Anaheim, Santa Ana, Whittier, Pasadena, Santa Monica, West Covina, Ventura.
It's a huge leap in productivity.
They can all do the same thing. And these machines will be used by the printing industry right up until the 1970s, and by 1980 they became obsolete because it was offset photo printing,
Were these
as well as computers and satellite
mechanical and manual, or operated by?
Completely mechanical, manually operated.
Okay.
And that brings us to actually showing you the machine in action.
Oh, so this is manual mechanical, right? Even though it looks like very like electric, like. Wow. Wow. Let me take a better look at it.
As I type on the keyboard, brass matrices like the one I showed you drop out of the magazine into the assembler. With the
Wow.
line complete, I send it into the casting system, and if the machine were hot in casting, the slug would be cast,
Yeah, like that.
and the line of
All the little pieces
matrices
go back to the
carried
top and
to
get
the
soaked
top of the
themselves.
machine,
Exactly.
where they're sliding along a rail, much like this one, only it's longer, and it has gaps matching that same binary code. When the codes match and the matrix is no longer supported, it's right over its channel in the magazine and drops right back into place. Well,
So,
that's easy.
does it only sort, or it also makes the? It only sorts.
No,
Oh, it also makes the.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's got
Yeah.
a hot liquid metal in it.
Yeah,
Oh.
when it comes out,
And
it
makes-
fills this up
Okay.
full of, we call slugs or
Okay,
lines of
okay.
type. That's how it got its name.
Oh.
And then, of course, what do you do with all that metal? You melt it down into pig iron bars and then reuse it. Not to save the environment, be practical, save money and material.
Okay. Okay.
So anyway, though, at its peak of letterpress printing and hot metal composition, the LA Times had about 110 of these, taking up an entire floor of the Times building in downtown LA. To keep all those machines supplied with metal and to deal with the mountain of used type forms they were producing every day, they had a remelt furnace that, if you could have withstood the heat of type metal at between 535 and 550 degrees, you could have taken a swim in it. And they had pig molds for the metal that left no doubt in anybody's mind whose type metal they were stealing. When they abandoned letterpress printing and hot metal composition, they basically took all 110 machines and shoved them out an open window to crash into the parking lot below and be hauled off for scrap metal. Now, and that is pretty typical of the major newspapers between the mid-1970s and the very early 1980s. Smaller newspapers took a bit longer, though. We have here the last surviving type form from the last letterpress edition of the Westminster Herald, published just a few miles down the freeway from July 17th, 2003.
2003.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can't believe they're still using
And
That's technology.
I'm told that it was literally a mom and pop operation, with mom setting the type and pop running the press, note the singular. And as you can see, we've got a line photo engraving up here for the logo, 2 halftone photo engravings for the photographs, and I'm told they came out of a very cheap machine that never did work properly. And so every photograph the Herald ever published was at least a little bit blurry. 2 lines of hand-set foundry type, Gutenberg's technology, for this one headline. Everything else is all line cast type. Now, because of how they were basically hauled off for scrap metal, a linotype machine in working order is a priceless relic. We have 2 that are in working order, and a third that was in working order when we moved it to the back building, and when we finally get around to fully reassembling it, it shouldn't be difficult to bring back into working order. One of those 3 isn't just in working order, it's hot and casting, and that's the next stop on the tour.
Someone needs to tell them the war has ended. The Revolutionary War. I'm just kidding.
So anyway, did you have anything to
No, I just want to say, I'm going to turn you over to James. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so much for this
And,
valuable
we're not
information.
finished. He's
Oh,
going to take
okay.
over to the 50 shop. He's
Okay.
going to cast your name in a typepiece and
Okay.
print with it.
Cool, cool,
So that's going to be your souvenir from this trip, from your visit.
cool.
Anyway, I want to, if James won't tell you, or if he doesn't tell you, I will. Thank you for visiting, and tell your friends and family about us. So we know what
May
the
I
best
ask, what about the
tips.
background? You just took interest in this kind of, or were you like?
How did we?
Yeah, got involved.
Well, my background is in history and education, and I've been on part-time staff member for 23 years.
Yeah, it's
Before
just
that, I did educational programs at Knott's Berry Farm.
because we're cramming 30 years of knowledge in just 1 hour. Like
Oh,
like one
yeah,
year.
exactly. And we're talking 30 more than that.
Yeah.
We're talking, several hundred years of knowledge or technology.
And I'm actually a programmer by trade, which is why I was the first one around here who noticed that the notches on a linotype map formed a binary code.
Wow.
And, well, I took 1 semester of graphic arts in college, and ever since then I'd had this deep-seated yearning for unfettered access to printing equipment.
Even Steve Jobs, like he took interest in calligraphy for the fonts and stuff.
Yes, and talking about people still using line casting equipment, there are a few places still doing it, mostly for artisan letterpress. But there was a guy in Saguache, Colorado. He was written up in the April-May 2022 Smithsonian, who up until sometime in the past 3 years was still printing a weekly newspaper entirely by letterpress, from small photo engravings and lots of line cast type. It's the April-May 2022 issue of Smithsonian. If you don't take Smithsonian, you probably have access to a library that does, and you might even be able to find the article online. One of these days, we're going to take that framed copy of the article and hang it someplace where it's convenient to look at. But if you'll follow me to the 50s shop. So how'd you find out about us?
Oh, I actually went to the firefighter museum yesterday, and I asked AI, so give me something similar, and she's like, okay, go here. Yeah, the fire engine truck at the museum was amazing too.
Okay. Welcome to the 50s shop. This is an approximation of a mid-20th century letterpress job printing establishment. Most of the equipment you see in here is in working order, and it does get used. And in fact, I am just going to press on this project here, which is a business card sized promotional brochure for the museum. I've been wanting something like this for many years, and over the past few weeks I finally put it together. But the machine we're currently looking at, or currently most interested in, is this. Now this is not a linotype, it's an intertype.
Okay.
There was a company, the International Typesetting Machine Company. They started out selling spare linotype parts, from what I'm told, and then the day after the key patents on the linotype expired, they had the first intertype machine on the market, and it's been a Ford and Chevy situation ever since. Some things work better on the linotype, some things work better on the intertype. In particular, Mergenthaler linotype has a much safer, much more reliable mechanism for ejecting the finished slug after it's cast. I found that out the hard way when I was struggling to get this thing casting souvenir-length slugs when it had spent its entire working career casting full length. This used to be part of a mold. The part of the mold that casts the body of the slug. I had the dial set for the right size ejector blade. It kicked out the next size longer. The machine was jammed for 2 months when one of my fellow docents finally, who had the knowledge, the skills, the time, and the willingness to bail me out, when he extracted the ruined part, and I know I wouldn't have been able to extract it without destroying the machine in the process, he handed it to me and had me sign it. I'm not the least bit shy about owning my mistakes around here. This is a museum. People don't own their mistakes. Artifacts get ruined. And so I wouldn't have batted an eye if he'd asked me to hang it around my neck like a dead, rotting albatross. Now, on the other hand, Intertype already had a better magazine design for reasons that would bore you to tears, even before they added the clear plastic top. Now, this isn't for show. It isn't a special for the museum. This serves a very practical purpose. These things jam. You do enough line casting, you're going to deal with a jammed magazine. And it's a lot easier to unjam if you can just look straight at it and see where the problem is, instead of having to peer through a narrow opening and probe with a long wire hook. But you didn't walk in here just to listen to me flap my gums about the equipment. You came to see it in action, so if you'll each put your name or whatever it is you want cast on a slug request form, I will cast it for you while you watch.
Sure.
All we ask is that you keep it clean. We are a family museum, and
Okay, I'll just.
also please no partisan politics, right or left. That didn't even used to be a thing until a couple of years ago. Somebody handed me a slug request that had me
Oh my
pressing
God.
the urge to issue a different kind of slug. But I assure you, no,
It's like saying no on Prop 22 or something.
no visitors, paying or otherwise, were harmed that day. And also, of course, it does have to fit on a slug that size.
It says Stuyvesant or something. What was that company like? Is that the company related to printing? Like, because I noticed
That's
this
the
name.
name of the font.
Oh, the font. Okay. 'Cause I heard the name before. I don't know where.
He was one of the founders of Colonial in New York. Okay. Now, did you want this all caps?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
The exclamation mark, if possible.
So really let us talk down to the magazine.
Okay.
There's great videos on YouTube about how these machines work.
And this machine is 5 years older than I am, and it's 5 years crankier than I am. Dropped an extra fee. Now, with the line complete, I send it into the casting system. The slug is being cast right now.
This is absolutely
You'll be able to see
bonkers.
them dropping. And you don't want to grab that.
Why, it's gonna be hot?
Yeah.
What are the residues called? Those shaved, those.
Well, when the mold disc rotates after the slug has been cast, it rotates past a trimming knife that shaves the screws off of the base of the slug. And then when it ejects the slug, it passes between two more trimming knives that shave it down to the exact point size. And those shavings are the inevitable result.
The base is called what? The spruce?
Screws.
Spruce.
Yes, like the
Tri-
screw attached
Oh,
to
okay.
the piece of foundry pipe that Peter cast for you. In that case, it's a screw, a gate, and a pouring basin all in one piece. At any rate, though, like I said, 5 years older than I am and 5 years crankier.
Oh, back then, would you know, like the space was invent. They had something for the space.
Yeah, multiple spaces, so they
Okay.
can justify a line.
Yes.
There's different widths of
Yes.
spaces.
Okay.
When I'm not justifying, I use the three different sizes of fixed spaces. An M quad, which is the point size wide, and an N quad, which is half the point size wide, and a thin space, which is the preferred space when you're setting upper and lower case, or all lowercase. But if you're justifying, then you use space bands. Which, when it's in justifying mode, they will be pushed up to expand the word spaces until
It's like a continuously variable space.
Yeah.
You can just dial in however much you want.
Like the tab or like.
yeah. So anyway, once again, the slug is being cast right now. Now earlier I said not to grab the hot slug. You'll touch it very gingerly, you'll know why.
Yeah.
We have a Boy Scout program here. Imagine 80 to 100 scouts doing 2 merit badges in 6 hours. It's a zoo. Many years ago, before we rented out the back building, or the west end of the back building to Kelly Paper, we were doing one of the first merit badge days, and we had this one kid who didn't know what gingerly meant. He didn't get hurt, but he let out a most impressive howl, and I realized that I needed to be a lot more vigilant about keeping people from doing that. Okay, now, what we have, oh, I need to prime this because it hasn't been used yet today. Okay. Now this is a high-speed proof press. This is the kind of press that a newspaper or other large letterpress operation will use to proof type forms before hanging them on a production press, because who wants to run 100,000 copies of a typo?
Except for inverted Jenny. I'm sorry to interject.
Same, same, same principle as the Miles Nerdine proof press that Peter showed you earlier, except that it's power driven and self-inking and all controlled from this foot switch down here. Now you're going to go down with the foot switch, hold it until it stops by itself, and then let go.
I like it says every noob needs to be trained. So, you know.
I believe you
Okay,
have.
okay,
you
well, I
have
don't know what I'm gonna do. Oh my god.
subscribed.
So, just step and hold.
Now hold it till it stops by itself. Now let go.
Oh, this is what we've been waiting for, guys. If you have been wanting, made it through, check this out. Subscribe, guys. Thank you. Can I? We can keep it, right? I can keep it.
Oh yes.
Oh wow,
But
nice.
keep in mind that Printer's Ink is first cousin to Artist Oil Paint.
Okay.
It takes time to dry, and flapping it around doesn't accomplish anything other than to look silly. This should be dry sometime between dinner time tonight and breakfast tomorrow morning.
Thank you so much.
Well, what you got to do it, have to be doing it.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, let me donate too. I already donated. I'm gonna donate more.
Correction. And that concludes the tour. Feel free to look around, take all the pictures you like, ask all the questions you like. And as Peter already said, tell all your friends about us so we won't be the best kept secret
Absolutely, and I
inside
get
South
views a
Florida.
lot. So I hope. Thank you so much, James.
And also feel free to watch me continue to run off the
You don't have any slugs or type for souvenir, huh? Like those. What do you call those?
you're carrying one.
Huh?
You're carrying
Oh, really? Oh, never mind. I'm such a. I thought that was just the paper. Never mind.
That
Well,
would explain why the bag is a little heavy.
Yeah. Well, Dutch fireball rubber base.
One of the things about Printer's Ink is that a very little bit goes a long way. And, well, there's a reason why why we say scrape, don't dig, because that keeps the surface area as low as possible and keeps it from
All right, guys.
drying.
I'm gonna end it now. It's kind of long, so thank you, everyone. I'm gonna end it formally later. All right, guys. Just got out of the museum. It was mind blowing as you found out. If you followed through, if you came to this point, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out a lot. I mean, I have to say this, you know me. All right, well, I have to make it funny, right? I have to say subscribe, like. Well, I showed you the typecast, right? Okay, but whatever. Subscribe or die.